Okay everybody, I'm starting to work on the gas tank here, and as you can see it's a little bit dirty. I need to clean it up, but I took the petcock off the engine, or off the fuel tank, and basically there's just two screws here, and you remove those screws, and this is what the petcock looks like out of the bike. And you can see there's little screens in it that keep the debris from getting into your fuel line, and it was leaking. This fuel tank over here, the previous owner had all kinds of caulk and junk all over this. It was just a mess, and it was still leaking a little bit. And all he needed to do to fix this problem was to buy a new O-ring. Well, this is the old O-ring, and as you can see, it is just smashed beyond belief. It's like as flat as a pancake. So all I did was bought a new O-ring, put it on there, and that's the right size for it. And it should correct the leaking problem that he was so vigorously trying to fix. So that's where I'm at right now. I'm going to clean up that tank and put this petcock in there. Okay everybody, I'm back. I put the Kickstarter on the bike. Pretty simple. I don't think there's really any explanation that needs to happen with that. But the reason I did that now is I took the spark plug out of the head and I very gently started to roll the engine over. And what I was checking for is I wanted to make sure nothing was hitting inside, that I did proper valve adjustment, that my compression release was working like it should, and everything seems to be operating the way it's supposed to. The true test will be when I do kick this engine off for the first time. Fingers crossed, everything will be the way it's supposed to be. One of the things I did run into that had me thinking for a little while is I hadn't run into before where the when I put the cam chain on and the lines line up with down here on the engine and then up here, like I was explaining earlier, I was very slightly off up here or down here. It was just a tiny little bit, but it was enough to raise a little concern. So I called a buddy of mine who rebuilds these quite a bit, and he told me that most likely the bottom gear on here was slightly worn. Not enough to merit any real concern, but that was the reason for my timing mark to be slightly off on the top. He said as long as I was able to adjust my timing correctly here, it shouldn't be a problem, and that was no problem at all. I was able to adjust the pulsar here to be correct. So everything's good to go. I was worried about it for a little bit, but now I know that that's normal wear and tear on a bike of this age. And I did not need to replace this unless there's a problem with how the engine runs. But presently, I don't know how it runs, so we'll find out. Okay, I've been doing a little work here. I busted out the throttle cable out of the box that I had, and just kind of strung it out on my workbench here, and then I refed the cable through the throttle assembly, and it's pretty self-explanatory, but I'll open it up and I'll show you how the cable goes in there. But you can see this old plastic piece that is a throttle assembly. There's nothing wrong with it. It's dirty and ugly, but I'm going to put new grips on it, and if you want to order these grips, these are genuine Honda grips. I like them. Aftermarket stuff is nice, but I prefer the genuine Honda. So if you want to buy these, here's the part number, and that's what I got. So I'm going to cut and go to... Okay, opened up the handle, and I don't know if you can see this, but this is where the bead of the end of the throttle cable goes into the throttle assembly. So you can see the way it's shaped and where that bead goes, and then there's a little plastic piece that presses in here to hold that cable in place. So that's the way it should look when you put it together and put the cable on it. So if you had any questions, there's the answer to it. I got a little ahead of myself on the throttle assembly. What I have to do is I got to put this new grip on this, and it takes a little bit of effort to get them on. So I took it back apart, and I'm going to put the grip on, and then I'll put it back inside the throttle assembly. Oh, and I'll explain to you how you do that. These grips are really tight, and they you have to use some fluid, and I'll show you how that's done. Hey everybody, I'm working on my carburetor today to install it, and this is one of the pieces that slides down in through the top of the carburetor. You have to make sure you take this out before you install the carb. It makes it difficult to get it out of there once it's in the bike. And here's the spring that also sits inside there. And one of the things that the manual does not tell you is how this has to be reinstalled. It's very important. This section right here bolts to the motor itself. You need to remove that, and that's 8mm bolts to take that off. Remove that boot, install it onto the carburetor, and then slide the carburetor in through here and up, and then bolt it to the engine. If you try to do it the other way, the shock will get in the way. It'll hang up right here on the choke pin that's sitting here. So it has to be done that way, or you'd have to remove this, which doesn't make any sense. All you have to do is remove this boot from the engine, install it to the carburetor, and then slide it up in here and attach it to the motor itself. It'll go smoothly for you, and it did for me once I did it that way. So I couldn't find anything on the internet that showed you that. I had to figure it out for myself. So there you go, guys. One thing I wanted to mention, when you're putting the throttle cable inside here, you have a lot of spring tension on it, and the threads that hold this cap on are really fine. This is aluminum. Take your time. Go slow, maybe even turn it the opposite way until you feel it click onto the threads, and then slowly tighten that up. I've had a friend or two that has destroyed their carbs just because of this part right here, so just be real cautious when you go ahead and put this back on. There is spring tension here, and it will take a little bit of finagling to get that thing just so you can thread that on good. Okay everybody, I've done a little bit of work off camera, and I apologize for that. I didn't think about filming, but basically what I did is I put those new hand grips I had ordered. They're genuine Honda. I just wanted to have it look like the old school bike like it is, and you can see I put the one on the clutch side and the throttle one on, and I did buy a new Motion Pro throttle tube. The old one I had was just so beat up. I looked at it and I'm like, you know what, it's a couple of bucks, I'm gonna buy a new one. So I bought a new throttle tube and installed it. And just to show you the cable routing, here's the throttle cable. It goes across the front here and through the front fork, and then it comes over and across the top here, and that's that little plastic or rubber piece that you have, and the cable runs through that and right down to the carb on top here. And then for the clutch cable, which I'm working on right now, you can see I attached the cable here, and then there's a bracket that a long bolt threads into the motor itself, and it's pretty self-explanatory. When you put it on there, you'll see you have a missing bolt there, and this is the one that goes there. And then that cable comes up, goes through here, and across the front, so you got a little crisscross thing going on, and then you'll attach it to the clutch, and then we'll work on adjustments here later. But that's where I'm at right now, so I'll keep you up to date. Okay, I got some more cables on. One of the cables that was a little bit tricky was the front brake line. The way it goes is it's going to wrap around here. There's a keeper that holds it right here. There's another one right here, and then you connect it to the front brake assembly here. And one of the things when I was disassembling it that I forgot about is I had to take this off in order to get the cable on. And I also had to detach it from up top here before I was able to string it through the bottom, especially with the brand new brakes on, because there's not a lot of play in here anymore with the brand new shoes. So just know that you're going to have this loose, connect it to the cable, don't connect it to your brake handle up top, and fish it through here at the lowest setting, and then hook it to your brake. And if you do it in that order, it'll work. So here first, there last. Okay, hopefully that helped. Hey everybody, I just got done putting the air cleaner inside the bike, and the way I went about it is I went in through this side of the bike and wiggled it in. It's a little bit tight, but it goes in. And the thing I had trouble with is getting this plastic piece onto the carburetor. It's a little bit chilly here. It's not that cold today. It's probably 50 degrees, but I tell you, I could not get that plastic piece to go up on there. So what I did is I just very gently warmed that plastic up with my heat gun, and it went on like, fits like a glove. So that helped me. I don't know if it'll be necessary on your bike, but it was on mine. I needed a little assistance. Well, I got the fuel tank on, and if you look, there's a screw on this side, and there's one identical to it on the other side. You put those on first, and the gas tank will pivot down, and then you use this little rubber piece here, which goes under here, and hook the back of the gas tank, and it's good and solid. After you do that, it'll move around a little bit, but that's what it's designed to do. So there I am with the gas tank, and we're getting close, guys.